this episode, we're gonna go over the 7 things I look for whenever I'm buying a property. And remember, we're doing this in the Tesla. And I know I'm standing way far apart from the steering wheel. All I gotta do is this and I'm fine, so don't worry about me. So we're actually gonna be training on this. So whenever I'm evaluating properties, and I evaluate quite a few every single day that we purchase, here's a couple things that people don't realize when you're purchasing a property. Number one, whenever I'm checking out a property, and I look through it, I got to fill out what I call a repair worksheet. So I literally have to go through these 34 items. There's actually more than 34 items, and each one of these items, remember, they have different trades. So these are all different tradesmen that I actually have to hire and get bids on. But because I've been doing this so long, I can kind of right off the back go off of this property, right? Or really any property, I kind of know my numbers, right? From in sense of, does it need to be changed out? Does it need to be replaced? What needs to actually happen to this property? What does it look like? Okay. So then what I do is, like, this property needs to be painted inside and out, AC unit, repairs. So this property needed $31,000 worth of repairs. Okay. So now how do I actually evaluate the property? Well, a lot of people don't realize this, but whenever you're evaluating a property, number one, you've got to look at, the first thing is, you got to look at what is similar in year built. So the first thing is similar in year built, 5 years up, 5 years down. Okay. So similar year built, again, similar year built, I don't know how to spell this stuff, but it's fine. So similar year built, 5 years up, 5 years down. So if your property was built in 1970, that means you could only bring up comps. An appraiser is going to look for 1965 to 1975 properties that have sold it within that area. That's the first thing, right? Now the second thing that they're actually looking for as well is, now they're looking for similar square footage. That means if your property was 1,200 square feet, we're looking for properties that are between 1,400 square foot to about 1,000 square foot, and then you're going to get what they call an average of your square footage, right? Now you got to get similar in lot size. That's another thing that you have to factor in that a lot of people don't know about. And you have to factor in lot size. Then after that, what you've got to also factor in right after that, is it 1 story or 2 story? So it's got to be similar into style of property. What's the style of the home? You can't evaluate a wood frame home with a block home. Remember that. And it also needs to be the same style, same year built. And also, number 5 as well, you've got to look at upgrades versus downgrades. Upgrades versus downgrades. So meaning, is your property, is it upgraded to the hilt? Does it have granite? And does the other properties that we're looking for, are they upgraded or downgraded as well? Like, you can compare your property that's not upgraded to a downgraded property, right? But you've got to also, you have to evaluate that. This is another evaluation, right? Because if it's downgraded too much, remember, the individuals, they can't get a mortgage. So people, if you're trying to sell your property for the highest dollar amount, the other person's not going to be able to get a mortgage because your roof needs to be repaired. You've got major issues inside. The electrical panels are probably screwed up. Plumbing issues. All of these are factors, right, that you have to factor in. Then you've got also, you've got to be able, the property has to have sold within the last 6 months. Okay? Within that time frame of 6 months. So if it's sold after 6 months, that doesn't even count as a comp. So you can't count your neighbor that sold 3 years ago. You can't count your neighbor that sold 2 years ago. This is basically what we're looking for. Okay? And then number 7, you've got to gather all this data, right? And then it's got to spit out an average roundabout figure of what you think it may be. So I'll give you real time from yesterday that we saw this property, right? So the comps said if the property was made out of gold, it was worth possibly $220. But one thing that he didn't factor in that you have to, that that we did factor in yesterday was it was off of a main street. Main Street has a deduction of anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000 because people don't want to live off of a main street, right? So now the first thing you got to do is you got to look at, okay, comps, if it's made out of gold, it's going to probably move for 220, made out of gold, right? Because that's what, when we factored all these in, this is what it came back at. But now you got to take off about 10K because it's off a main street. So now we're going to be at 210, right? Now you got to factor in, it needs $31,000 worth of repairs. So now you got to factor in repairs. So from 210, $31,000, I believe now, what is that, 180? I gotta get my calculator out. So if you do the math on this, you're at 210 minus 31, that's at 179. Now, that's at 179. Now let's say you want to sell it at 179 knowing it needs a ton of repairs. Well, now you got to factor in, you've got realtor commissions on both sides, because if you want to max it out, you definitely want to use a realtor, right? And then you have closing costs. Closing costs can range anywhere from 1.5% to 2.5%. So you got 3, and then you got 1.5 to 2.5 on closing costs. So if you factor in all those numbers, you're about 8.5% of just the cost of doing business, okay? So now you got 8.5%, and again, this is a roundabout. Now that means now you're gonna spend $15,215. Perfect, the car's moving by itself again. Now you have to take this number and deduct it off of that number. Now, matter of fact, we haven't even talked about profits, right? So now I'm at 179. So now I'm at 163. So 163. We haven't even talked about profits, right? So for me to do a major project, $20,000 or above on a rehab is a major project. It's gonna take us 3 to 4 weeks to knock out. Sometimes longer, it all matters permits, and then you gotta put it on the market, and it's gonna take anywhere from 3 to 4 months for a realtor to possibly sell it because it just takes time to get the mortgage. So now you have to factor in, well, how much profit do I wanna make? Well, if I wanna make $25,000 worth of profit minus the 163, well, now 163 minus 25, now I'm at 138. And then doing this repair sheet, going line by line by line on everything, that's how we spit back out our numbers. So hopefully this makes a lot of sense. If it does, fantastic. And if you're getting a lot out of this right now, please, you gotta slam that like button right now, because this takes a lot of coordination doing this in the Tesla. So anyway, this is exactly how you have to do it. What we'll do is we'll probably take a picture of this, make it a PDF so you guys can download that as well. And I'll talk to you guys on the next video. And again, don't forget to like and share, and see you guys on the next one. Bye.